Hello, my name is Ruben Anchondo, and welcome to this presentation on human resource selection and development across cultures. Today will be introducing to you the concept of international human resources, why international human resources is important to multinational corporations, sources for international human resource managers, various selection criteria that is used, economic pressures and trends in expatriate assignments, more commonly referred to as expats, selection process used by multinational corporations. I will also be discussing the various compensation methods used, differences in individual and host country viewpoints, repatriation of expatriates and challenges that expats face. I will highlight the training in international management, types of training programs, as well as cultural assimilators and future trends for multinational corporations and international human resource. Firms conducting international business need to be particularly concerned with human resource management issues, including selection of qualified individuals and training to better prepare their personnel for overseas assignments. Multinational corporations, also known as MNCs, focus potential sources of human resource that can be employed for overseas assignments, strategies that are used for their selection process, and compensation issues. We will see that a one-size-fits-all approach does not work for international human resource management. So, does anyone know why international human resource is important? I'll give you a chance to answer. If you answered human capital, labor shortages, tacit knowledge, expat managers, and reduce economic pressures, you can give yourself and your classmates a pat on your back. Human capital refers to the individuals that have a skill set required for a particular assignment. Global companies are experiencing a labor shortage as skilled labor is in high demand. Tacit knowledge is knowledge that can't be formalized in manuals or written guidelines, and hence face-to-face communication with resource managers is needed. MNCs must send expat managers overseas. No matter how good virtual communications become, international human resource functions within the NMC are within the NMC and therefore help in reducing economic pressure by reducing costs and increasing efficiencies. International human resources requires having to source human capital from somewhere. So where do they go for management and skilled labor that they require? Home country nationals are individuals who are citizens of the country where the multinational corporation is headquartered. Expatriates, or more commonly referred to as expats, are individuals that live and work outside of their home country. Local managers that are hired by NMCs are referred to as host country nationals. Third country nationals are individuals who are citizens of countries other than the country in which the MNC is headquartered, or the one in which the managers are assigned to work by the multinational corporation. Another source is inpatriates or inpats. Those are individuals from the host country or third country nationals who are assigned to work in the home country of the multinational corporation. Subcontracting and offshore sourcing is also utilized as a potential source for international management, but not without controversy. Union groups, politicians, and NGOs have challenged multinational corporations' rights to engage in labor arbitrage. Labor arbitrage is the practice of searching for and then using the lowest cost workforce to produce products or goods.
Oh, pick me! Oh, I know, me!
The general criteria for selection refers to both technical and human criteria that firms use when selecting individuals for an overseas assignment. Firms that fail to utilize any or poor selection criteria find that their rate of failure is quite high. Overseas managers must be able to adapt to change, not only in cultural norms, but social norms as well. Physical and emotional health should be considered when candidates have disorders such as a heart disorder or a nervous condition that would not be a good fit for an overseas assignment. That could worsen their condition and cause the project to be a failure or delayed. Age should be considered based on the needs of the project and requirements for experience and education. Although younger candidates tend to be more worldly and have a greater appreciation for other cultures, a seasoned manager with more experience might be suited for real-world experience. Although English is the primary language of business, sending candidates to non-English speaking countries can be a disadvantage and cause critical issues. Managers of speaking English countries have done poorly in the language area. Motivated candidates that are committed to the mission of the multinational corporation tend to be better candidates than those that are looking just to get away from domestic issues they may have. Spouses and dependents can also influence the consideration of a candidate. MNCs often use the adaptability screening to see how well suited members of the family are to the stress of an overseas assignment. Work life is also evaluated as a criteria which shows how apt they are at navigating their work functions and responsibilities. Does the candidate have the ability to lead? Firms look for specific characteristics such as maturity, emotional stability, effective communication, independence, initiative, creativity, and good health. Candidates that can take the initiative to evaluate their suitability for an overseas assignment and engage in the process that allows them to be considered as a suitable candidate. In other words, don't just talk the talk, walk the walk.
Pressure, pushing down on me, pressing down on you. No man has fall under pressure.
As Eddie Mercury and Queen aptly put it, international human resources and the managers deal with a lot of pressure to fill positions for multinational corporations. Despite the high rate of reported success rates or filling positions, issues relating to employees' families were cited as the most common reason for assignment refusals. Roughly 38% of candidates surveyed stated that family concerns were the primary reason for assignment refusal. 17% of those surveyed stated that their spouse's career was the number one reason to reject an overseas assignment. 40% of respondents said that educational support for their children was very critical in deciding to take an overseas assignment. If multinational corporations could focus on providing such services to their candidates, it could reduce the overall costs associated with rejected assignments and failed assignments. Part of the problem with expatriate programs is the traditional finance metrics, such as return on investment, are not utilized by the overwhelming majority of companies because the primary objectives are not profit-based and difficult to quantify. If we take a look at trends in expat assignments, you can see that women make up about 19%, of assignees. Most assignees are between the ages of 30 and 49, and half of them are accompanied with children, and the majority of them are accompanied with a spouse or a partner. You can also see that the United States and China and the United Kingdom are most frequently cited as assignments for expats. Brazil and China and the United Arab Emirates are primarily emerging destinations, and China, India, and the UK have the highest failure rates for assignees. The most common procedures used in the selection process is testing and interviewing possible candidates. Some firms use one, and a smaller percentage of them use both. Testing is the least used of the methods. Firms report that the costs, questionable accuracy, and poor predictive record make testing of limited value. Interviewing is the most preferred method for selecting for most of the firms. One expert noted that extensive interviews with candidates and their spouses by senior executives still ultimately provide the best method of selection. Once a candidate is selected, they are subjected to one of two types of adjustment processes that can help them adjust effectively to their new assignment. Anticipatory adjustment is done before the candidate leaves their home country and is subjected to various cross-cultural seminars and workshops. In-country adjustments is done once the expatriate is on site. 5 factors are given into consideration for the candidate: positive outlook, clarity of the expat assignment, organizational structure and how easily they can adjust, non-work matters, how they adjust to the social environment outside of their work, effective socialization tactics, and network ties refer to how expatriates form adjustment facilitating support ties in a culturally unfamiliar context. Motivation is seek support from actors of the host country, selection and support seeking toward actors, contacted actors' ability and willingness to provide support, utilization of received support, and addition of actors to the network. As you can see from this presentation, on this XY axis chart, perceived competence will increase over time.
Show me the money!
As Tom Cruise and Jerry Maguire so aptly put, these are common elements of the compensation packages. A base salary that can range from $200,000 to $300,000. Benefits can range from extra vacations to special services provided by the multinational corporation in the home country. Allowances like cost of living allowance, education and hardship allowance, relocation allowance, and housing allowance are common for the multinational corporations to provide to expatriates. Special incentives like lump sum cash payments for taking an assignment. Although most expatriates will have the burden of 2 taxable incomes, MNCs usually pay the extra tax burden. Most multinational corporations will tailor their benefit packages. Some of the most common approaches are the balance sheet approach. This ensures that the expatriate is made whole and does not lose money by taking the assignment. Localization, an approach that involves paying the expat a salary comparable to that of local nationals. The lump sum method, this involves giving the expats a predetermined amount of money and letting the individual make their own decision regarding to spend it. Cafeteria approach gives the individual a series of options and lets the person decide how to spend the available funds. And a regional system is a compensation system for all expats who are assigned to the particular region and paying everyone in accordance with that system. Candidates can be motivated by numerous reasons. Some of the more common factors are individual achievement, security, job accomplishment, fringe benefits, advancement, and earnings. Although MNCs try to choose people who fit well in assignments, little attention is given to the host country's point of view. While some factors of behavior are acceptable in their home country, candidates can come across as having a negative approach due to differences in how they interact with host country employees. It's important to understand those differences and mitigate any possible negative behaviors. The most common reason for expatriates returning to their home country was that their assignment duration was over, typically 2 to 3 years. Although not common, 23% of early returns were cited for family concerns, and the second most common reason for returning was due to the company restructuring. Companies regularly send managers on overseas assignments, but fail to accommodate them once they return to their assignment. About 25% of managers leave their job within a year of return. Some of the factors included loss of fringe benefits, adjusting to a lower standard of living, changes from private to public schools for their children, and lifestyle changes. Companies can mitigate against losing valuable talent by implementing transition strategies. Repatriation agreements can guarantee an individual on return a job or a position that is mutually acceptable. Giving the expatriate the support and recognition that is expected can help retain talent. Helping expats understand the customs, cultures, and work habits of local culture is done through training. Human resource management practices vary across the globe. Some companies prioritize structural empowerment, accelerated resource development, employee welfare emphasis, efficiency emphasis, and long-termism. Management philosophies can also vary. Some of them can have an ethnocentric philosophy that stresses nationalism and often puts home office people in charge of key international management positions, or polycentric, which places local nationals in key positions and allows these managers to appoint and develop their own people. Regional-centric philosophy relies on local managers from a particular geographic region, to handle operations in and around that area. And geocentric philosophies seek to integrate diverse regions of the world through a global approach to decision making. Based on the management's philosophies of the multinational corporations, the learning styles will determine the learning environment as well. Two reasons given for training are organizational and personal. Organizational training focuses on companies' efforts to manage overseas operations more effectively. It also helps candidates overcome ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism is the belief that one's way of doing things is superior to that of others. Organizational training can help home office managers understand the values and customs of other countries. It can also help improve the flow of communication between the home office and the international subsidiaries and branches. Personal training focuses on the individual's own desire to learn the social norms of the host country. Standardized or generic training involves companies teaching participants how to use specific decision-making tools, regardless of where they are in the world. Tailor-made training is created for specific needs of the participants. Inputs for the programs are collected by managers that are currently working or have worked in another country. Training is usually provided before the individuals leave their home country. Cultural assimilators are programmed learning techniques that are designed to expose members of one culture to some of the basic concepts, attitudes, role perceptions, customs, and values of another culture. Content of the assimilators is created to introduce expats to issues and situations they may encounter in their host country. Validation of the assimilator can be difficult to achieve if the responses to the situational interaction do not conform to agreed upon incident resolutions. Although the cost of assimilators can reach up to $40,000 for a typical 75 to 100 incident program, the cost can be mitigated by the amount of participants that undergo the assimilation and the long-term effectiveness of the program that can be used for years. The goal is for the multinational corporation that can create a positive organizational behavior. Positive organizational behavior is described as the study and application of positively oriented human resource strengths and psychological capacities that can be measured, developed, and effectively managed for performance improvement in today's workforce. So where are we headed? As attitudes about globalization are changing, so is the need for international human resource to focus on scrutinizing costs and benefits for overseas assignments. Employees will continue to scrutinize the benefits of taking an overseas assignment and how it will affect them after the assignment is over. Cross-border commuting may become more relevant as labor shortages become more commonplace and companies need to increase or maintain a healthy amount of human capital. For the foreseeable future, multinational corporations will continue their international assignment programs and stay the course. We identified the three basic sources that multinational corporations can tap into when filling management vacancies in overseas operations, in addition to options of subcontracting and outsourcing. I described the selection criteria and the procedures used by organizations and individual managers when making final decisions. I also discussed the reason why people return from overseas assignments and presented some of the strategies used to ensure a smooth transition back into the home market operations. I described the training process, the most common reason for training, and the types of training that are often provided. I explained how cultural assimilators work and why they are so highly regarded. I also discussed future trends of firms that continue to operate overseas. I want to thank you for taking the time to familiarize yourself with human resource selection and development across cultures. Do you have any questions?